We have three remaining presenters here. I'd like to introduce Brent Ross. Brent's Associate Professor for Ag, Food, and Resource Economics. And I know, Brent, you came in a little later. I just wanted to, if you want to make sure you do need to speak at least somewhat close to the microphone. That's probably too far. So yeah, I probably need to keep you at least within a few feet of the microphone here. So again, Brent, go ahead and take it away, and glad to have you here.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks to the Center for Regional Food Systems for inviting me here today to talk about one particular project that I've been involved in over the last year and a half. It probably won't come as a surprise to anybody in here if I suggest that the U.S. food system is becoming a lot more dynamic and complex in recent years. Some of the reasons why that might be, we've seen a lot more adoption and introduction of new technologies into the food system. We've seen increasing demand from consumers that their food system deliver not only food attributes, but also non-food attributes as well. And so the characteristics of the food system create a lot of challenges for managers, for policymakers, and being able to keep up with latest trends and latest changes in the system. But it also creates or opens the door for entrepreneurial behavior and the introduction of new types of organizations to take advantage of some of those opportunities that those changes might present. And so one example where we've seen, I think, a lot of entrepreneurial behavior is in reaction to the increased demand for local food and regional food products. And so we've seen a rapid increase in the number of farmers markets, rapid increase in the number of CSAs, as well as other direct-to-consumer systems or organizations. We've also seen a large increase in the presence of local foods in on retail shelves, as well as in institutional markets. And so I think it opens up some really interesting opportunities to look at entrepreneurship within the food system. Now, I think what is generally true is when we look at entrepreneurship in the food context and in general, we tend to look at individual business organizations or focus on individual entrepreneurs. And so what I want to talk about today is that we also observe that new organizations are being created by networks of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial groups. Okay, and this is broadly known as collective entrepreneurship. One particular type of collective entrepreneurial venture is a food hub. And so some of you might already be familiar with the concept of a food hub, but a food hub is essentially a business or organization that aggregates source-identified products from a regional group of suppliers or producers, distributes those products, and markets those products down the supply chain. And Rich is going to correct me, I'm sure, but as of 2013, I believe there were about 220 food hubs. I think that number's been updated. They're estimating about 300 to 320. And so about 60% of those organizations are less than 5 years old, roughly. Yes. And so to maybe put some more familiarity on it, some of the food hubs that are present here in Michigan would be the Cherry Capital Foods out of Traverse City, Sprout Urban Farms, I always get that one wrong, out of Battle Creek, the UP Food Exchange out of Marquette, the Washtenaw Food Hub out of Ann Arbor, Eastern Market out of Detroit, and then our very own Allen Marketplace just down the street here in Lansing. And so, Rich, I did my best job to get a nice picture of you. But Rich has been very involved in the Food Hub community, both in Michigan and in the U.S. And so one of his favorite sayings that I think is very true is when you've seen one food hub, you've seen one food hub. Now, not only is it catchy, right, but it also resonates a lot with economics and management theory, looking at industrial life cycles and rates of innovation. And so I think one of the things that Rich has hit on here is that a lot of these types of businesses are here in the fluid phase of an industry life cycle, where we see a lot of introduction of food hubs, a growing number of food hubs. We don't see any particular dominant design of what a food hub looks like or what it should be. And we see a lot of experimentation on the types of products that those food hubs might deliver, as well as how they might be organized and set up. And so the project that I'm talking about today and that I've been involved in with the graduate students, Tetya, I'm going to get this wrong, Abedesen, as well as other colleagues at MSU and Missouri, is to try to take a deeper dive into understanding these food hubs, understanding how they work, understanding how they evolve over time, and particularly trying to understand how they create value for the members that belong to that network of entrepreneurs that have led to this organization. And so our first kind of step in looking at this work was to develop a conceptual model of how these ventures might create value and performance. And so one of our hypotheses is that the structure of the network and the composition of the network, so who's in the network and what are the roles in the network, plays a big role in allowing to the food hub to create different types of value. It might be value that's created by allowing those individual entrepreneurs to be more efficient, to get scale and scope economies. It might allow the individual entrepreneurs to gain legitimacy so that they can go to a bank and get a loan or be able to work with downstream retailers or partners. It might be that they're better able to mitigate risk, okay? And it might be those individual entrepreneurs might be able to accelerate their own innovation, introduction of new products to the marketplace. And so there's a range of different ways that we think food hubs might create value. Now, value creation is great, but we also got to be able to capture the value. And so we're thinking of how are these food hubs organized? How are they structured, nonprofit, profit, cooperatives, okay? How are they structured in a way that allows them to capture that value and deliver different types of performance, business performance, economic performance, social performance, community. The other component of the project is to develop curriculum, and in particular case studies, that can be used in the classroom or with extension audiences or with executive audiences to put them in the place of a food hub manager, okay, to help them learn how these types of organizations might work and to learn lessons that they might take back to their own practice. And so the way the empirical research is being conducted, we've identified 8 particular food hubs, 4 in Michigan, 4 in Missouri, and we've been interviewing the managers of those food hubs, as well as the buyers from those food hubs, as well as growers or suppliers to the food hubs, to try to understand, one, in terms of the food hub manager, well, how do these things work from your perspective? But also trying to understand, okay, why would a grower be interested in selling their product through the food hub? Why would a hospital be interested in buying their products from the food hub? Okay, and so we've been conducting this over the past year. Some of the key findings from this research. One is that, and this is not going to be too surprising, that scale is a significant factor, probably the most significant factor for retailers and institutions in determining whether they're going to work for that food hub. Also, in terms of organizational structures, we see a wide range of organizational structures, and that has challenges for how those organizations are funded. Nonprofits, mainly funded by grants, okay? For-profit, usually there seems to be a single investor or maybe a few investors in the business. But we also see food hubs that are combining those things, okay? Where part of their organization is set up as a for-profit organization, but then they're using grants to be able to fund the infrastructure components to it. Okay? And then from our initial interviews, we also see, or we're also observing that food hubs are create value for the various members by saving them time and resources, okay? As well as allowing customers to meet their strategic market commitments that they've made through their sustainability work. So I'd like to thank you for your attention, and certainly would welcome any feedback and questions that you have.
Do you anticipate, so you did eight food hubs in states. Could you make some statements about any differences you saw about network structure and operation between Missouri and Michigan? If you could refresh that answer.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we are looking at food hubs both in Michigan and Missouri, and so the question is, do you observe any differences? I think one of the striking differences has been in being able to get the research going. Right? In Michigan, we have a much more established food hub network, and that's, I think, partly in thanks to the Michigan Food Hub Learning and Innovation Network. In Missouri, they don't have that, and so it was, in the first place, it was much more difficult to get in front of food hubs in Missouri. With that said, I think the food hubs in Michigan are much more sophisticated in their thinking and in their networks than what we observe in Missouri as well. And so I think one of the key differences or things that we're looking at is it, or will be the role of the food hub network.
Brent, thank you very much.